Ladies and gentlemen, the president is in the studio, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Rubel. Let's hear from Michael Rubel. Standing ovation for the president of Town Square Media, Atlantic City. Also, Michael runs a number of other radio stations for Town Square Media. 5 minutes past the hour, Chuck Malamut is here. As I thank Kirk, I thank Chuck, because Chuck is also one of our generous contributors. He will be feeding multiple families this upcoming Thanksgiving in our Feed a Family effort that's officially taking place on Thursday. But I take this opportunity in Chuck's presence to thank him. Chuck is the managing director. He leads his team, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office. To reach Chuck and his entire group, 609-383-2010. Chuck is now in his 26th year as our official financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program, also the Hurley in the Morning charity. The following program that you're about to listen to is presented by Chuck, who is a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of Chuck Malamut. They do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast and are subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney, member, SIPC. Chuck, I want to say good morning.
Good morning, Harry.
Thank you for your contribution to Feed a Family.
You're more than welcome.
And let me get to first.
Happy to help.
Happy Election Day to you, my friend. I know you've already voted.
No, actually,
I thought you were teasing when you said that. I thought you voted.
No.
Okay, I thought you voted on the way in.
We'll vote this evening.
Okay.
Our entire family will go.
All right. I need to get the first question out of the way because it makes me I've only thrown up twice in my life, and both times it's been on people. But this creates a little bit of almost like I want to throw up in my mouth a little bit, and that is the fact that yesterday's wonderful rally, after 9 consecutive losing days, which was a 30-year record, by the way, the James Comey rally, I'm calling it, Chuck, because that's what – it's so easy. It's so easy to ignore all the world things that happened. The fact that do you have to lose for a 10th straight day? It's only the James Comey rally because for some reason, I don't understand it, because she'll raise taxes, she'll kill jobs, she'll be terrible for your job, she'll be terrible for my job, but for some reason, this utopia of financial – people are all in for Hillary Clinton. I don't understand it, Chuck. I really don't.
Well, Harry, I think the market, and we've talked about this on multiple occasions, is the fact that.
But if they love, I know what you're going to say. They love the known and not the unknown. If the known sucks, why would that be a good thing? That's all I want to know. Nobody will give me an answer to that. Markets don't like the unexpected. They love the known. Hillary's known. Yeah, we know. She's liberal. She's going to tax. She's going to do horrible things at job creation. She's going to be terrible for coal and oil and any other type of energy that they're going to sick the EPA on it. But everybody explains this away, except Neil Cavuto, by the way, as it's the known. That's the answer, isn't it, Chuck?
Well, Harry, I think if you look at what transpired prior to yesterday's rally, we had, obviously a number of negative days, and it was just that it was if you had, the old expression, death by 1,000 cuts. The market would open up, usually in the morning up, and by the end of the day, you would have some sort of a sell-off. It was, very, very orderly. It was very, very calm. Volume was not in huge numbers, but the fact of the matter is that, what has transpired over the last, several years, and thank goodness today is November 8th, because I don't think this could end fast enough.
Me too. I'm with you.
The breaking news headlines, you watch whatever network it is, and it's just this constant, repeat of information that you were fed several hours ago. But you think about one sentence or two sentences that were written by Comey and released
and very cryptically and released on a Sunday.
And so what happened was, the S&P was up 2.2% yesterday. So what happened was investors were looking for a reason to get back into the equity market. So
they were looking for a reason to have a good day.
And I think so. And, Harry, you think about it that, the reason that we had those 9 consecutive days of moving backwards was because the polls became very, very tight. And, maybe the old expression and,
But
you're not going to
why it's bad.
It's fear. I think this is clearly fear of the known versus fear of the unknown.
Actually, I don't think there's any fear of the known. There's the fear of the unknown.
Well,
that's the only piece.
I mean, I think everyone understands clearly what what a Democrat is going to do, to our economy. And I remember a couple of weeks ago you gave me the beatdown when I came out and said actually it was at 3%, and you jumped on me with GDP. I said, and I retracted that statement,
okay.
But you just kept on and on like a sort of like a dog with a bone.
No,
but
once you retract it, once you
but the fact of the matter is, I think tonight we're going to be hopefully in a better position. And Harry, the one thing.
By the way, I got to ask you this, Chuck. Are markets going to plummet this morning?
No.
No. Because Hillary Clinton canceled her fireworks tonight at 9 p.m.
No,
is that the opposite of Comey?
No, the markets this morning, Harry. At least up until about a half an hour ago. Well, maybe they're expecting bad weather. Up until about a half an hour ago, Harry, the markets were very, very muted. I think the markets, and again, we don't like to focus on what happens on a day-to-day basis within the market, but I think certainly with where we are today and leading up today, I don't have a problem talking about what happened yesterday. I don't have a problem talking about what could potentially happen today, and the exit polls as they come. During the day, could very well spell the direction of the markets. If it goes in favor of Trump, don't be at all surprised that the markets again, gyrate somewhat and move lower during the day. But I think the worst thing that can happen here, Harry, is that
by the way, they did when Reagan won, markets went down too. So this is consistent. I'm not being harsh about this. This is very consistent. As bad as Jimmy Carter was, and now that there's no harm in saying that, it's safe to say it now. The media was telling America that Jimmy Carter, it wasn't a matter of if he was going to win and be reelected. It was only a matter of by how much. Reagan went on to rout him so decisively that Jimmy Carter called him to concede, while California and the entire West Coast had not even ended their voting yet by hours. And markets went down because Reagan won. But then with his policies, markets then improved amazingly.
I think, Harry, this is going to be more of a short-term blip.
Well, that's how that was.
And not a long-standing negative market, because the one thing we have, they've virtually got no attention over the last quarter is what's happened with earnings. So the one thing that we want to not have happen this evening is that we go into tomorrow or the next day without a winner.
And that could happen.
I'm
just being totally honest, because Florida is going to be very close. North Carolina is going to be very close. Pennsylvania is going to be very close. I think Michigan is going to be close. Colorado is going to be very close. New Hampshire is going to be very close. We could have literally 7 to 10 states that we won't know the result before 12 midnight tonight.
And the interesting thing about yesterday's rally, Harry, is that the old expression, the rising tide lifts all boats. That did in fact happen with the S&P and the Nasdaq and the Dow Jones, and actually it started overseas in the international markets as we had done very, very well going into the opening of the U.S. markets yesterday. But two sectors that we believe that will not do well under a Hillary Clinton administration is financials and healthcare. And they, in fact, did rally yesterday, along with all the other sectors within the S&P. So if you kind of look at where we are year to date, the sectors that are performing the worst is healthcare, which is down 6.5% going into yesterday. and financials are barely in front. They're about a little bit over 2%. So, I mean, the market, again, remember, the market is always somewhat a leading indicator. And, if you take a look at energy, utilities, technology, materials, telecom, they're the sectors that have kind of carried us through this year. I mean, the S&P, you think about all the anxiety, Harry, and everything we've been through. The S&P up maybe about 5%, slightly over. And so, last year the predictions that we made were high single digit, low double digits. We have a lot of work to do in a relatively short period of time. So I think that what the markets want to have happen is that tonight, someone concedes. And there is a winter.
The markets want finality.
They do.
And being honest, the markets want finality, and they would prefer Hillary Clinton to win tonight. That's not.
Well, look, Harry,
that's true.
It is true. We haven't. This is something. It's not a great revelation. We've talked about this for months, and I always come in on a Tuesday morning, with a beatdown, knowing that what I'm going to say, you're going to.
No. I mean, I'm just.
But I'm just trying to bring to your listeners, what our world is thinking about. It might not be right, and it might not be right for the country.
Correct. And I would say it's not, and it's not.
But that's, the market, we've been doing this a long time, and sometimes perception becomes reality.
The only thing I don't understand, and we got to get our first break in, I don't know why markets would want something that's bad for our country, because the policies that we know would be put in place would be bad. It would be bad for financial markets. It would be bad for businesses. It would be bad for everybody. And yet they want it. It makes no sense. There's no explaining.
Harry, I can't disagree with you on that.
And I don't, and yet it's so predictable. 17 minutes past the hour. We're coming right back for all of your financial planning needs. Turn, as I do, to Chuck Malamut, the official financial advisor to the Early in the Morning program, the Malamut Group, standing by at your service at 609-383-2010. Much more great insight, including the Fed, and I'm about to win a pizza in a very, very short period of time. I can't wait. We'll be right back.
Early in the Morning.
With the official financial advisor to the Early in the Morning program, Chuck Malamut. Chuck, are we on Fed update, or are we still on what's next?
You can, Harry. Whatever. I think we're done with what's next. I mean,
what's next was ugly.
No, it wasn't ugly, Harry. It was
no.
When it's 6:07 or whatever, and I'm listening, and I hear you.
Oh, you heard me say the James Comey rally.
Yeah,
you heard what was coming.
I immediately jumped out of bed. I said, "Oh, geez, I better be very, very prepared for this one." But we were. That was at the top of the list.
I am happy for the James Comey rally, though, because I'm rooting for our country. What were you thinking when we were setting a 30-year record with 9 straight losing days?
Harry, it was, we never want to focus on this, but the market for the last, several weeks has just done this remarkable job of focusing on the presidency and really had lost sight.
It's true.
On everything else that's out there, because there's a lot of good things happening.
It's very true what you just said.
And so now hopefully we can, after tonight, and someone is declared the winner, someone's declared the loser, that we wake up Wednesday morning and we get back to hopefully business, as usual. Because, Harry, if you take a look at the third quarter earnings, we're pretty much at the end at this point in time, and more than 85% of the S&P 500 companies have reported, and earnings are up about 3% over for the quarter year over year, and that's the first positive quarter we've had since the first quarter of 2015. So that had pretty much been ignored.
How are companies doing in general hitting top line?
Top line actually, top line has been pretty good for the most part,
because that had been the challenge.
And the money, or not the revenue was not being met, but the earnings were. I mean, every day you're going to get a company or 2 or 3 that are going to miss, and they're going to absolutely slaughter that particular stock, and maybe other stocks in that particular sector. But the problem that we're living through is that the market looks on a quarter by quarter basis, and it's not what you did for us previously. It's what you're going to do, today, tomorrow, the next day. And so what it's forced is that a lot of companies are so laser focused on getting to the next quarter and not necessarily focusing on, long-term trends, where we're going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years out.
Yeah, that's well said, Chuck. Do you think, Chuck, that markets are paying enough attention to the number of manufacturing jobs that we consistently are losing?
Well, Harry, I was thinking of you on Friday as the October jobs report, came. And so we saw
it wasn't even the total, Chuck. The 161,000, and it should have been 170 something or 180, and unemployment, whatever, 4.9. That I'm not even moved by any of that because that whole thing is a scam right now. But I'll tell you what did strike me: we lost 9,000 manufacturing jobs, but we increased 19,000 government.
Yeah,
jobs.
This reminds me, Harry. Remember,
that's terrible.
Remember in 08 and 09. When we would sit on the edge of our seats waiting for the next employment report to come. And typically what was happening, the industry, not the industry, but the government was leading the pace with new hires. And, manufacturing, was basically taking a second seat and having a reduction in that, that particular part of employment. But, that did in fact turn. For a number of years, and now it seems of late we're back with government, jobs surpassing that of the private sector. Now, the good news with the reports that the employment report we saw on Friday, Harry, is that there were some upward revisions in the prior months, but the market didn't care. The market did not care about the employment number. The market did not care about earnings. The market just cares about where we are today,
right?
And that's why, we need to move on. And I'm hoping that whatever the results are, that we can kind of put this behind us and really focus on what's important, and just get out of this daily routine of paying attention who's doing what to whom in the presidential election. So I'm hoping that in the next 24 to 48 hours, Harry, that we can in fact focus. So, the unemployment rate, Harry, dropped to 4.9% in the month of October. It was just simply amazing that if the SEPTA transit strike was settled, I guess it was yesterday, and everyone is back to work today.
I know.
So,
by the way, it's two guys that used to collect a bargain, and we did it during some very interesting times, because sometimes during the best of times, it seems like that collective bargaining should be the easiest, but sometimes it's the hardest. And Chuck can appreciate that, and I know a lot of our listeners out there can appreciate it. It's sort of sounds counterintuitive, but it's more true that it's not. Sometimes during toughest times, you have easier collective bargaining because people accept that there's no money, and you got to go with what we're able to do, or you lose your job. So you have a lot more leverage in bad times than you do in good times. I made a prediction, Chuck. There was no way that strike would not be settled before this morning. It had to be settled, and I will guarantee you that what Philadelphia was promised is going to be exorbitant. They have been promised, the
sun, the moon, and the stars.
Yes. I want to say women, wine, and song. They've been promised everything imaginable. And by the way, that could be the difference in who will be the next president of the United States.
Well, Harry, I think tonight should be very, very interesting, and I think all of us will be glued to some sort of media, whether it's radio, television, the internet, or whatever, as we watch the results come in. And I'm thinking, Harry, this will be very, very tight. This is not going to be a landslide in one direction or another. And again, it would be, and
it could be a late night.
You might have an all nighter.
And
it's very, very possible
into tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. So I would, if I were you, I would go home, get some rest this afternoon, because I think you're in for a very, very long evening.
Somebody texted me. I can't reveal my source here, but they asked me to spice it up. I'm thinking, spice it up? I've been really spicy today.
Oh, you mean maybe this
the
is
show.
hour? Well, no, because you think about Harry, you went for 2 hours solid. And now we actually have diverted a little bit
I love it, though.
away from from politics, and I think you have after me today an open no
Dr. Bob.
So we're done. So I guess the person that sent you that text message is looking for more of the same. So.
Chuck, your show is awesome.
But Harry, they can look. You can get all the politics you want.
Awesome.
It's simply amazing how many media's outlets there are. But so let's focus a little bit here on. So you talked a little bit on the employment number 161.
Right after the break.
You got it.
Halftime break. Chuck Malamut continues. For all of your financial planning needs, turn as I do to the official, the exclusive financial advisor to the Hurley in the Morning program, Chuck Malamut, leader, managing director of the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield office, 609-383-2010. For all of your financial planning needs. Think about it. No matter what position you're in right now, perhaps you have a young child and you haven't set up college building. You can make things so much more pleasant and manageable if you plan in advance. Sit down with Chuck. You'd be surprised. Chuck will talk to you about things you haven't given thought to. Planning for vacation, planning for retirement, planning for college building. So many different areas that Chuck can help you and yours. Chuck Malamut, 609-383-2010. 36 minutes past the hour. Chuck Malamut, our very own, we're very blessed, our very own official financial advisor to the Hurley in the Morning program. In my humble estimation, the best in the business at what he does. For all of your financial planning needs, turn to Chuck, 609-383-2010. Chuck, you were saying
so, Harry, let's spice it up here a little bit, okay?
Go.
So, as we talked about the employment number at 161,000, what did happen? One of the headlines that came across was the average hourly earnings accelerated by almost at a 3% annual rate, 2.8% actually, Harry. And this happens to be the highest level of wage growth that we have seen since we came out of the 2008 and 9 financial crisis. So, on a sort of a go-forward basis, when you look at a tighter labor market, it's a classic sign of a maturing, economic expansion. So, we're sort of at one side or the other because, subpar 3%, but the economy, is the economy sort of at the end of its rope, so to speak. And are we going to, go back and enter that awful word that begins with an R? But I don't think we're quite there yet. I mean,
No.
But in all likelihood, we're going to continue. It's going to probably continue more of the same. But what you also have to look at the fact is, Harry, that inflation is starting to move a little bit higher.
Chuck, do financial markets ever consider what could be as opposed to? I know you have to go by what is. But it's almost like we've accepted. I hate that expression, new normal or new norm. I wrote a column about it, and I just eviscerated it because I'm sick of hearing like we should accept that we have to grow either at zero or fractional growth. What are we missing? I mean, we have a country that has 240 years of experience of doing amazing big things. Why are we accepting this?
So I guess if you put it in 2 words or 1 word, it's subpar.
Right, for 8 years?
And so we've all become accustomed to it. We've all become accustomed to, government, whether it's federal, state, local, municipal, county, or whatever it may be, is, they're your best friends, Harry. They want a piece of your action all the time. And the problem is you can only run so hard and so fast for so long. And I think what a lot of people are thinking about, a lot of people have talked about, and there's a lot of people that haven't talked about it, is the fact that can we continue on this track, and if so, for how long? And I think that's why you've seen so much outrage that has taken place over the last several months in leading up to where we are today.
I mean, we're approaching 100 million people that are not in the workforce, Chuck.
I think the number
was 94 million something.
Yeah, I mean, if I saw correctly, it was 10. It actually was 10%, maybe 11%
Terrible.
Of when you bring back in those that have pretty much given up hope to discourage workers. So, and at 4.9%, Harry, it's really, think about it. It's really not 4.9. You have people, working in multiple spots, counting not once but as two. And as you and Kirk had spoke about earlier this morning, the fact is that you get to that number and you don't want to hire that next person. You want to grow your business.
Yeah.
But you can't hire that person because now you do that. Then what is the negative impact going to be to your bottom line because of the rising cost of health care?
Yeah, you get Obamacare raining hell on your life. And then, of course, in the figure of the 4.9 is vaporizing people who are called discouraged workers after as little as 30 days, which is really ridiculous. And then it doesn't even take into consideration people that are in jobs really that aren't very good. Underemployed. So it really, it's a shame that they get it. They're pulling one over on us. How about this dreaded word, inflation?
So Harry. So it looks like from everything we're seeing that inflation is starting to tick a little bit higher.
Yeah.
And in addition to the wage growth that we just chatted about a minute ago, we're seeing signs in healthcare that we just kind of spoke about, rising costs. Housing, except obviously in the area that we're in right now that we live in, and education costs, they're also increasing. So inflation, has traditionally put a drag on consumer spending, and that's going to impact potential economic growth as we get into the next several months ahead of us. So you think about the road that we're traveling here, we need to stay on track because if not, the economy could end up going in the wrong direction, and ultimately your 4.9% unemployment number is going to increase, and it's sort of more of the same. But I think that when you kind of put it all in perspective, Harry, the last 9 days or so we didn't really have a lot of volatility. It was that constant drip of a decreasing stock market, and then you get that one big day yesterday. Mm-hmm. So don't be at all surprised if we continue to have a fair amount of volatility over the next several months. But the theme that we're trying to bring home is we still think that in spite of the volatility, that equities are going to move higher as we get to the end of the year, and probably if you look more domestic growth than you have international at this point in time.
And Chuck, the Fed update, the Fed is still appears to me to be very committed to raising interest rates now that the election is over and before the end of the year. Correct? I have a pizza riding on it.
No. We had
you
won the pizza.
I won the pizza.
And
right.
you tried to coerce me into another pizza.
I tried to double down.
And I said no, I'm not going to take that action.
That's right.
So let's just all your listeners
that was a good
understand
call.
that.
That was a good call.
Okay.
I had implanted a false memory. But anyhow, getting back to it though, the Fed is going to raise interest rates one time before the end of 2016.
Yeah, so as I've heard it and seen it, and we've talked about, it's the annual increase. We had one last year. We're going to have one this year. The numbers that we're seeing are decent enough. The Fed has advertised that this is going to happen. So unless some reports come across over the next couple of weeks that we weren't anticipating, I think the market is prepared. If you take a look, Harry, at short-term certificates of deposits and you look at Treasury bills, it's already been built in. So it's going to come as no surprise when the Fed meets in December, by increasing 25 basis points. But I think what everyone is listening to or wants to hear is that, on a go-forward basis, what is the Fed thinking about as they get into 2017? Now, from the last reports that I read, Harry, there's an 86% probability that they're going to, in fact, increase rates in that December meeting.
Yeah, I'm going to raise it to 100%.
Well, it's never 100, Harry. It's maybe 99. I know that, I don't want to tell you.
It is when you're Harry 100.
I listened to you yesterday.
It is when you're Harry 100.
Just awful what you did with your mousetrap. I was just, I I was
Wasn't
appalled.
that?
I was
Wasn't that-
appalled.
Wasn't
that
it
you-
impressive?
I was appalled that you would do that.
I think I got a B or a B plus.
But you were in college, so that's
Yeah.
you got a B or B plus. You didn't get an A.
I don't think I got an A.
Well, happy. Well, happy.
But I'll tell you what though, the classmates loved it.
Well, I'm sure they did.
When it came
And-
screaming, I don't have time to explain this now, but when my project came screaming into the classroom, I got an ovation.
And we did some projects in high school that I won't talk about because I'm sure today they're probably not terribly legal.
You know, Don Hurley.
I think the animal rights people would be very, very appalled at what we did. So I'll hold that aside.
Don Hurley and I did a volcano in grade school. My father built the volcano, and he had electric wires. It was like the Brady Bunch. My father could build anything. Oh, it was phenomenal. All right, Chuck.
So we're running out of time. So
Yes.
Harry, look, you know, I don't want to beat a dead horse. So look, the markets.
Well, let's talk about something positive, like the year-end rally.
Yeah, so what we think will happen is that first we've got to talk about what we're going to get through tonight, and
Okay.
you know what everyone is, not everyone, but the majority of those in the know are suggesting that the Democrats win.
See, I'm at peace. Either Donald Trump's going to win, it's going to be a better America, we're going to make America great again, or Hillary Clinton's going to be president, and I'm going to have 4 years of material. So you know.
So, yeah, I guess it makes your job a lot easier. But you know, if Trump is elected, you're going to have more volatility. But we had that with Reagan,
and
we saw through it. So there's nothing wrong with having a business person, run the country.
Back then we had the greatest peacetime expansion in American history.
The markets need to get back to focus on fundamentals, and I
Right.
think we're going to start doing that in the very near future.
Because you would agree, now they're focused on the politics
so
of the election.
Absolutely, Harry. So global economic growth is improving. More so here in the U.S. China is big. I mean, it's very, very important that China continues to move in a positive direction. We've talked about Brexit. We've talked about Europe. They kind of play second fiddle to China, certainly. So, you have, think about it. We had collapsing oil prices. We had a surging U.S. dollar, and that dragged down corporate earnings over the last 18 months. So that is now out of the picture. That has sort of faded by. So I think, Harry, as we get to the end of the year, the next 6 to 12 months, we think the markets will continue to be choppy. And there's no reason for them not to be. Equity prices should move higher. Bonds will probably increase as well. We talked about that with the Fed. So you take a look at your portfolios, and you need to dig down a little bit, depending on who is going to run our country, to make certain that you own the right sectors. That you're underweight certain sectors and overweight in certain sectors. So, with that, Harry, I'm going to turn it back to you. I know you have another hour. You need to go get some rest.
Although that's not going to happen with what I know I have to do. But I do know this is important. This is very important. Now Chuck has signed off. I can say this now. Democrats have taken an early lead in the election, so it's very important that everybody get out to vote. But this will drastically change later in the afternoon once the Republicans get off work. 48 minutes past the hour. I am Hurley in the Morning. He is Chuck Malamut. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Mini open forum, and then Dr. Bob to close out the program.